Could you no longer make suggestions for what we should or shouldn't eat? That's one that you'd be shocked at, really. Maybe you're not shocked. That does need to be asked of many instructors. Hey dancers, it's Kirsten. Welcome back to the Confident Dancer YouTube channel. Today, I'm going to bring to you some tips on how to have a tough conversation with one of your teachers or your director. This could apply to anybody, but I know a lot of dancers get in situations where you have a difficult circumstance going on with maybe your teacher isn't treating you in a way that's conducive to your learning process, or you have a director who is just exhibiting some behaviors that really is not healthy for the environment. Whatever that situation is, I want to give you some tips, really a 4-step process that you can use to start that conversation with them. And if you just use these 4 communication principles, it will really help have a more effective interaction with them. Now, I want to say off the bat, I know this is really nerve-wracking. This video is inspired by talking to some of my clients recently. As a mindset coach, I often work with dancers who want to overcome things like insecurities, self-doubt, fear around making mistakes, performance anxiety, building confidence, things like that. Sometimes my clients bring issues to me that are coming up as a result of how their teacher or director is behaving towards them, and I often try to steer the conversation towards like, okay, we're going to look at how your mindset is affecting your response and the way you feel and think and act. Yes. And what I also do know about dancers in general is that we tend to take a lot of the blame and responsibility and put it on ourselves to change. But this is not always healthy, my friends. So if you've been knowing for a long time that you need to talk to one of your teachers, you wish you could just help them to understand what isn't working in their communication. You wish they would stop saying a certain thing or doing a certain thing that's been disruptive or stressful for you, but you're like, oh, the last thing I want to do is talk to them about it. Friends, really do consider that without appropriate and helpful communication, if nothing changes, nothing changes. So I do also understand, another little disclaimer, that sometimes a teacher will respond well. Sometimes we do fear, for good reason, that they might lash out as a result of us bringing up a suggestion that they change. This has personally happened to me. I've had 2 instructors in honestly quite a childish way lash out to me when I was still like just coming out of childhood into early adulthood. And it was like, really? Wow, okay, because sometimes their ego is a little too big to handle this, you know? That does happen. Want to acknowledge it 100%. You need to weigh out for yourself, like, let's see, if it does happen, how worth it is it for you to speak your piece? So at least you know that you spoke your piece, and that then if this challenge continues, it honestly really is still their problem. You have made it clear what your needs are and your ask is. In many situations, it has definitely been worth it for me, even though, like I said, I have dealt in my past with instructors lashing out at me. Many other times, I was very fearful that that might happen, and it actually didn't. So weigh that out for yourself. If you know this person has a history of not changing or a history of lashing out, and this is an informed perspective, like you know for a fact that they've done this before, and it would not be worth it for you to rock that boat, then you just have that opportunity and responsibility to then weigh out your choices after that. Is it worth it for you to stay quiet? Is it worth it for you to stay quiet now and find another place to go? You know, these aren't always fun things to entertain, but just weigh the pros and cons for yourself and just come down to not just like this pros and cons list, but what is personally worth it to me? Is it to speak my piece, take a risk, or not? I would like to think the most common situation is that we fear that we're going to say the wrong thing and they're going to be mad. But I would like to believe that many times, in the case of my clients too, when I do coach them through the process of preparing to talk to a teacher, nearly every single time with every single dancer, they were afraid that the conversation would go badly, but it actually ended well. So that's where my perspective is coming from. Without further ado, let's talk through these communication principles to effectively have a tough but important conversation with your teacher or director. Okay, the first principle is going to be one that really helps to disarm the other person. So you know how people, when they're approached, can kind of be like, why are you talking to me? Or what are you trying to say? Or, you know, when someone approaches you and they clearly want to talk about something that's kind of serious and you're like, so principle number one is to make it clear what you are trying to ask of them up front. Okay, so that there's clarity around where this conversation is going and that person can kind of be like, okay, that's what they want to talk about. Because sometimes, you know, when someone comes up and they clearly want to bring something up to you, but they're really beating around the bush and you're just kind of like, this seems stressful, and your mind is imagining the worst case scenario and you're kind of like, what is it? But they're nervous, so they take a million years to get to the point. This is really going to help. So what you can do is just say, hey, can I talk to you for a moment? I really want to talk to you about the communication style that you're using in the studio. Can we talk about that for a minute? See how I just made it clear what I'm about to talk about, and I made it clear what I'm about to ask about, and I didn't necessarily get to the question because we might put that more towards the end after a little bit of context and sharing an intention, which I'll talk about in a second. But make it clear what you're about to ask about. Put it, if you can, as an ask, like, hey, I want to ask you about something, instead of like, hey, I want to bring this up to you. Hey, I want to tell you about this. Like, not that those are bad, but it can be settling to the person to say like, hey, can I ask you about this? Can I get your help with this? Can we talk about this, collaborate on it, and make it clear what you're about to ask about, just so that they're not wondering, and it also prevents you from beating around the bush too much until you just get to the point. Hey dancers, I just wanted to briefly interrupt this video to tell you that if you are tired of struggling with things like performance anxiety, self-doubt, overthinking, not being able to dance well and be in the flow and enjoy the moment because you're so in your head, you know, different mental struggles like this, I want to let you know that you don't have to keep struggling with that. And of course, these videos that I make are here to help you make a difference. But if you want to take this to the next level and really create profound, sustainable change in your confidence, your mental well-being, and your ability to consistently perform your personal best by working on your mind, then I have an opportunity for you. As a coach, I offer one-on-one coaching to help you really transform your mindset in order to do all those things I just mentioned. So this is for pre-professional and professional ballet dancers. And if you're interested in working with me, a mindset coach certified in neurolinguistic programming and a few other modalities, I would love for you to look into the Confident Dancer Coaching Program, which is my one-on-one program to really help you build authentic, sustainable confidence, genuine mental well-being, and to help you have the mental strategies to perform your best consistently. So if you're really interested in that, I invite you to click the link down below to my website, kirstenkemp.com. Different URL, same website, theconfidentdancer.com. They lead to the same place. And that's where you can learn more about my individual coaching services and book a free 30-minute consultation to chat with me. We can connect, talk about your goals, your challenges you want to overcome, and see if working together would be a great fit. So let's get back into the video. Point number 2 is to make your intention clear. Make your positive intention clear. This can both be for why you are wanting to talk to them, like, I want to talk to you today because, you know, I really value our class time. I really do want to continue to improve. I really value showing up as my best every single day. And so you make your general intentions clear, and then make your intention clear for why you want to talk to them. So I wanted to ask you if you might be open to rephrasing some of your comments towards me in the class, because it's been difficult, you know, and then we can start to get into more of the content. But make it clear generally your intentions as a dancer, if that's relevant. I respect you and I want to get along, you know, whatever that is, making that clear also transmits this tone of, I want to be on the same team as you, instead of I'm coming on an opposite team and I want you to change. That may well be how you feel, and it's probably valid, but that's going to be something that really helps to calm the other person down so they're actually listening to you. And I want to also say that the sharing of your intentions part is really, really helpful. Let's use an example of a teacher giving really harsh corrections that are repeated, and maybe they deliver it in kind of this angry tone. Sometimes what I've discovered as a teacher is that could be coming from a place of they want to see you improve, but maybe they're not sure about your intentions. Maybe they're not seeing you improve as fast as they want. And the interpretation going on in their head is, you're not listening to me. You don't care. You don't want to work hard. Sometimes, because there isn't a lot of verbal communication happening in the classroom, they can get your intentions totally, like they can totally misinterpret your intentions. So when you make it clear what your intentions are, and you share the intentions that are likely to be in alignment with what they also want for you, they're going to be like, oh, wow, cool. Much more likely, maybe not always, but it's more likely. Point number 3 is to share some feedback in a way that is going to, again, be disarming. It's going to calm them down so they're a lot more likely to listen to you. And this is one that's suggested by a lot of marriage and family therapists who deal a lot with helping people to resolve conflict within their families or relationships. Basically, this is a principle that helps people to have effective communication when they're having a tough conversation, which is, instead of saying, you did this and that's bad, instead of that blaming language, you say, when you do blank, I feel blank. So it's putting the attention on you. And what is good about that is it's very hard to refute someone's feelings, because that's like your personal experience. So it's not saying just black and white, what you're doing is bad. It's sharing, hey, when you single me out in front of the whole class, I want to hear what you're saying and I want to improve. I want you to know that. But it makes me feel really scared, humiliated, and ashamed. So it is harder to really implement what you're saying with all that pressure. It is a bit more calming to the person who might be listening, rather than, hey, when you single me out, that's completely inappropriate. Not that you would say it like that, but that is a really, really helpful framework for communicating. And what I actually recommend is, if it's helpful, maybe start with sharing the positive. So for example, saying, hey, when you express belief in me in the class and say, yeah, you guys can totally handle this challenge, versus, yeah, I bet none of you can do this, you would be shocked. I've actually heard instructors like outwardly express disbelief in me or other students. And so started with the positive, and then you can say, conversely, when you say really discouraging things like, give an example, or when you express that you don't believe in me and others, like, give an example, it makes me feel really shut down or super discouraged and frustrated, or like I can't win, like I'm a disappointment. And it is hard to move forward and really work to my hardest potential. So then let's round this out with point number 4, the last one, which is to then really clearly ask a question, make an ask and a request, okay? So instead of just kind of putting it out there, I think one way that these conversations kind of go south is you just kind of present the issue and then leave them to assume what you want. The key to success in these conversations is making it really, really clear what you're asking them to do or to change or to consider. So this is just the simple point of ask for what you want from them, okay? So that could be, so with this, I was wondering, would you be open to phrasing your corrections differently, like shape your foot? Instead of, why do you always sickle your foot? And those are ugly feet and you're not going to go anywhere in the dance world with feet like that. That's maybe an exaggeration. I sure hope it is. But make it clear what you're asking. Like, could you refrain from making comments about dancers, our weight in the classroom? Or could you no longer make suggestions for what we should or shouldn't eat? That's one that you'd be shocked at, really. Maybe you're not shocked. That does need to be asked of many instructors. And I'm going to throw in a little bonus point here. This is the part where you might be tempted to really backpedal and make excuses for them. You might be tempted to be like, now I understand, like, maybe that's a lot to ask, so it's okay if you tell us, like, just to eat healthier, to watch what we eat, but just don't compare us to the skinniest dancer in the room and say you all need to look like her. Okay, this is the part where I want to give a 4.5 point, okay? Don't make excuses or concessions for them. Ask your question and leave it there. leave it there. Why? Because when we get uncomfortable, especially as dancers and with the power structures that be within ballet culture, they often feel like it can be easy to feel like as an instructor, you have license to say whatever you want. Not always. These are generalizations, but it can feel that way. It can feel like, and I'm speaking from personal experience as an instructor, I've had to receive feedback from students despite like the best of intentions that I've had. I've had to receive feedback even from students and realize like the way I was communicating was really something that I became super accustomed to back in the day. And so I just didn't think there was anything wrong with it. And then for them, it was actually adding too much pressure, creating a fear-based environment. And that was totally not my intention. And it took a while for students to bring this to my attention, just because the way that ballet class works is you're doing the talking and the students aren't. So what can happen is like if we make concessions for them and it's like, oh, but you could mention this sometimes, or you could still do this, then it can kind of contribute to the if give them an inch, they'll take a mile kind of situation. Keep it concise, ask your question, stop it there, and see how they respond. And then from there, you can have more of a dialogue. Treat it as a collaboration. You could say this specifically. Hey, I'd like to hear what you think about this, or I'd like to ask for your help with something. That's a really, really powerful way to start a conversation like this, because lots of people, regardless of how evil you think they are, they do have that inclination to listen when someone's asking them for help. Now, they might not always have the heart to follow through with that, but it does pique someone's curiosity. So when you say, instead of, hey, I want to talk to you about something, hey, I'd like to ask for your help with something, they'll kind of lean in, okay? So I know I could keep going on and on and on about a bunch of different tips, but I hope this was clear. I'll do a little recap just to make this clear. So number one was to put what you're asking for in the subject of your conversation up front, so they're not wondering. The second is to express your intention. The third thing is to express your the example of why you're bringing this up in this format. When you do blank, I feel blank. And then number four is to just really clearly state what you're asking them to do or to change or to consider, just so that then that can lead into a dialogue about this. But this is really the four-step process for how you make your initial pitch and start the conversation. So dancers, I really, really hope this was helpful. Please let me know what you think in the comments and let me know if this ends up helping you. All right, so I hope you have a great week. Subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss next week's video, and give this a like to let me know that you enjoyed it if you did. I'll see you next week. All right, bye.